Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Lawrence? Yeah, 6 British things that are actually American. And I think T was on the thumbnail. But I thought T was Chinese. Oops, I have my, oops, sorry, wrong. Love Lost in the Pond. I have been watching Lost in the Pond videos for half a decade at least. Like, I remember watching Lost in the Pond where they had like 20 to 30,000 subscribers. And I'm very glad he has gone up a ton. He'll be at 1 million in no time. So let's go. Let's watch, guys. My name's Connor. If you're new, let's go.
On a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to things and stuff. Specifically, things and stuff that are widely synonymous with one country, but unbeknownst to most of us, were invented in the other. Today, we're going to look at 6...
I can't wait to go to the Discord after this and tell everyone that tea was invented by America and they're going to die inside.
British things that, against...
It sounded like super insane.
Today, we're going to look at 6 British things that, against all odds, are actually American. And you might be wondering, Lawrence, you're British. Why would you choose to show up your country in favour of the United States? Well, firstly, you hypothetical person, my official nationality is British American. And secondly, I recently gave Britain its due in the much heralded video 6 American things that are actually British. I'll link to that video at the end. And if you would like to be alerted...
Apple pie is not British, and I have no knowledge to back that up. I'm just saying it out of desperation.
About all things that are actually British. I'll link to that video at the end. And if you would like to be alerted about all future videos and haven't had a chance to subscribe to this channel, do that now. In the meantime, allow me to inflate your brain with facts so beautiful they belong in the Louvre or the discount bins at Walmart. When I first...
I'm good.
Or the discount bins at Walmart. When I first moved to the United States all of those years ago, people would ask me, Lawrence, apart from your family and Yorkshire puddings, what do you miss most about Britain? And my answer was always the same. British chocolate. I mean, sure, your average American grocery store might carry 1 or 2 Cadbury bars and mini eggs, but Crunches, Twirls and Whisper bars were a lot harder to come by. However, America's confectionery aisles did contain one divisive British chocolate bar that I happen to love, Bounty. Okay, fantastic, I can live with that, except 2 of the things that I just said are completely and utterly a little bit false.
Great movie, Bounty, Anthony Hopkins, Mel Gibson.
Bounty, a chocolate-covered coconut-filled fixture of UK sweet shelves, is not actually British at all, but American. And I know what you're thinking.
Almond Joy.
Lawrence, Britain sells M&M's, Snickers, and countless other American top sellers. What makes Bounty so special? And in some respects, you raise a valid point, especially since the wrapper is plastered with obviously Hawaiian imagery. You see, I always just thought that this was a product of fantastical marketing, kind of like how Britain came up with the world's most famous bears, despite the total absence of bears in the British wild. Furthermore,
you're destroying me. The British invented Winnie the Pooh?
this one is special in part because of its name, which brings me on to lie number 2, the truth of which is this. Americans don't call them Bounties. Here, the bar is branded differently depending on whether it's light or dark chocolate, with the names Almond Joy and Mounds applied respectively. Both were launched in the first half of the 20th century in the United States, and it was only...
Amazing, S tier, really good. Mounds, Almond Joy, York, awful. Payday, I had it once, I think. Butterfingers, like a half, maybe. Three Musketeers is just a worse version of a Milky Way, which is just a worse version of a Snickers. Baby Ruth, pretty good. Starburst, classic. M&M's, And the fruity Mentos.
White or dark chocolate, with the names Almond Joy and Mounds applied respectively. Both were launched in the first half of the 20th century in the United States. And it was only a few years later, in 1951, that Mars Incorporated, which had no trademark attachment to the American varieties, launched Bounty in the UK and Canada as straight-up imitations.
Isn't that just like with Lay's potato chips? You guys like have the same covering of the bag. It's a different name.
Sandwiched in between the launch of these sugar-laden chocolate bars was an even bigger killer: World War Part 2. Thankfully, as an antidote to the horror and misery unfolding before them, both countries found comfort in music. Most famously, American band leader Glenn Miller was hugely popular on both sides of the Atlantic, to the tragic extent that he disappeared over the English Channel in 1944. As it happens, Britain's most lauded wartime music icon herself became synonymous with the English Channel. In addition to singing the famous World War II hit and Dr. Strangelove outro track, We'll Meet Again, Vera Lynn soothed Britain with the equally hopeful White Cliffs of Dover. As the Luftwaffe homed in on Britain, who wouldn't have found comfort in the prophecy, there'll be bluebirds over the White Cliffs of Dover? Well, for one, ornithologists, because there are no bluebirds in Britain. In fact, they're entirely endemic to North America, which also appears to have been true of the song's lyricist. After it was released, New Yorker Nat Burton insisted he didn't realize that England didn't have bluebirds. Still, nice sentiment, Nat, if that is your real name. Anyway,
Hey, you guys don't have lions, and that's your national animal.
Speaking of iconic anthems, that brings us...
Hold on, no, wait. I wanted to say something really important. Oh yeah, the great thing about music is that it's very difficult to tell accents when you're singing. I can't really tell if it's a British or an American band or British or American singer. So I feel like that's one of the few things that either side of the pond, as you say, could have music for the other side, and it still just seems just English, not American or British.
In addition to singing...
I learned that from the, you know that song? I think it's it. It's like, girl, put your record on. Play me your favorite song. It was a black woman. But I liked it. But then I heard her speak, and she's British. And I'm like, oh my God, it's so hard to tell when we sing.
The famous World War II hit and Dr. Strangelove outro track, We'll Meet Again, Vera Lynn soothed Britain with the equally hopeful White Cliffs of Dover. As the Luftwaffe homed in on Britain, who wouldn't have found comfort in the prophecy, there'll be bluebirds over the White Cliffs of Dover? Well, for one, ornithologists, because there are no bluebirds in Britain. In fact, they're entirely endemic to North America, which also appears to have been true of the song's lyricist. After it was released, New Yorker Nat Burton insisted he didn't realize that England didn't have bluebirds. Still, nice sentiment, Nat, if that is your real name. Anyway, speaking of iconic anthems, that brings us on to this.
Wait, this is a bluebird? I thought bluebirds were the ones... Is it a blue cardinal? Yeah, this is the one I think of when I think of bluebird. Right? And we have these all over the place here. I love them. Great birds. Okay, sorry.
Few things are more British than football, a sport whose origins can be traced back to ancient China. Really? Okay,
US?
Fine, but few things really are more British than football chants and songs. And perhaps the most iconic anthem in the whole of English football is You'll Never Walk Alone. Appropriately, given the song's title, it is also synonymous with more than one British club, with supporters of both Celtic and Liverpool belting it out before kick-off. In fact, the song is so inextricably linked to Liverpool in particular that those 4 words can be found on the club's badge. It is used in reference to to the successful 1963 version by Jerry and or the Pacemakers. At the time, Jerry and or the Pacemakers were a popular group from Liverpool, perhaps second only to the auto cues failed. I suppose the people are never going to know the identity of that other group now, and so Liverpool. The song and everything it represents is as Liverpudlian as Albert Dock, except it isn't. You see, unlike the band formerly known as the Quarrymen, Jerry and or the Pacemakers did not write their first few hit singles. And this included You'll Never Walk Alone. But then you knew that if you happen to be a fan of musicals. I once played Prince Dauntless in Once Upon a Mattress, so it's a touchy subject. The piece was in fact the brainchild of American songwriting duo Rodgers and Hammerstein, who included the track on their Broadway smash Carousel. So how did it come to be an anthem for England's most trophy-laden club? Well, by 1963, Jerry Marsden, this time without his pacemakers, is said to have played a demo to Liverpool's legendary manager Bill Shankly, who was like, "That is an absolute banger, mate. Inject that shit into my veins." Now, we haven't verified the validity of that quote, but rest assured it was along those lines.
Guys, a pacemaker is something you, like a metal thing you put in your heart. Right? Any cardiologists?
Now, we haven't verified the validity of that quote, but rest assured it was along those lines. Later that year, the song, along with other chart hits of the day, made it onto the terraces of Liverpool's Anfield Stadium. And unlike those other songs, it hasn't left since. That's right, even the poppies that are worn by us Brits in the lead up to Remembrance Day.
I saw a very short video. I don't know a lot what's going on in the world of people like disrespecting Remembrance Day memorials in London, and I'm not even British. I heard about that and it made me upset. I don't know, that might not be right. Sorry.
Aren't actually British. But don't take my word for it. Instead, here's me from a year ago discussing it on a YouTube short that you probably missed. Moyna Michael was an American professor who pioneered the idea of commemorating soldiers with the red poppy. She'd been inspired to push for it after reading the famed poem In Flanders Fields by John McCrae, himself a Canadian lieutenant colonel. While teaching a class to disabled World War I servicemen at the University of Georgia, Moyna saw an opportunity to engineer financial support for the wounded by selling poppies. As a result of her efforts, the American Legion Auxiliary and the British Legion Appeal Fund both formalized the poppy as a symbol of remembrance from 1921. While Britain widely persists with the symbol more than a century later, America has long since phased out the November 11th poppy, with some choosing to wear one during May's Memorial Day. Thanks, Past Lawrence, my neck hurts. And now, just like my mate...
Well, that's like our Remembrance Day.
As after an hour on the beach, we go from something red to something even more red. But Father Christmas, one of Santa's pseudonyms while delivering presents in Britain, didn't always wear that particular colour. But as I said in 1987 when Santa brought me a protein pack instead of a proton pack, back up there, mate. Because who was Father Christmas actually? Well, I won't bore you with all of the details because I already did that in this video. But in a nutshell, it went like this. From English folkloric tradition, Father Christmas was indeed the personification of Christmas. Historically, he went by several names, including Christmas Lord, Prince Christmas, and I'm not making this one up, Captain Christmas. But when settlers boarded ships for the New World, they didn't take
and they boarded that to the New World right where I live. Hello.
Captain Christmas with them. But when settlers boarded ships for the New World, they didn't take Captain Christmas with them, presumably opting for an actual captain. There are two big reasons for this. Number one, 17th century Puritans in England had declared Christmas an affront to God, even banning it at one point. And number two, Puritans in New England kind of viewed things the same way. And so many Christmas traditions were shelved, including Father Christmas. But fear not, because 200 years later, with Puritan influence having long since waned, he returned. However, by the time he was revived by the Victorians, who often depicted him in green robes and a crown ordered on eBay, the US had moved on to other things, such as the Dutch figure Sinterklaas. And at this point you might be thinking, so what, Lawrence? You lied to us. All this tells us is that Father Christmas is still British. Correction, was still British. Because during the 19th century, word of Santa Claus reached England. People seemed to take a shine to him, and although for a while he and Father Christmas remained distinct, our version started taking on elements of that curious fellow from the North Pole. For instance, his crown disappeared and was replaced by a hood, probably Also from eBay. His
was Halloween also something that Europe took from America? I'm not saying Halloween didn't exist, but like the part of like trick-or-treating and dressing up as monsters and going door to door and being like trick or treat. Do you guys do that? And was that an American thing?
waist became larger and his cheeks rosier. And after Santa Claus was depicted in 19th century cartoons wearing red and white, Father Christmas came to follow suit. I didn't intend that pun, but gosh, it was good. And so today you could argue that he remains Father Christmas in name only, hence why a lot of Brits just call him Santa Claus. When you hear the word tea...
Oh, tea bags. Shoot, I thought...
There's only one country that comes to mind, Britain. I've just realised that's 3 countries.
China.
Nonetheless, the British fixation with tea is very real, dating back to the 1660s when it was brought to England by...
Guys, why do I keep hearing this? I saw it on the British... Sorry, hiccup. Citizenship test I took. In that Britain refers to... So Great Britain is 4 countries, right? But just Britain is 3 countries. So Britain is Wales, Scotland, England. I hate hiccups. And Great Britain is Wales, Scotland, England, and Northern Ireland. Is that correct? Or if I have another hiccup, I'm gonna jump out this window.
Catherine of Braganza, the future Queen of England. Just over a century later, Britain was so enamored with tea that Americans in Boston famously copied us by hosting a tea party of their own. And on a personal note, the one thing that Americans assume most about me is that I prefer tea to coffee, which is only true if I've had 3 coffees. That said, British people do generally love their tea, whereas Americans, more often than not, are indifferent.
The reason I'm indifferent, and I said this in the last video, and I need to start reading I read a few comments on it of what you guys said about it, but I'm not lying to you. When I drink a cup of tea, I have to drink like 8 cups of tea to get the same caffeine energy effect of 1 cup of coffee. So
instead, the latter love their lattes. And so it will surprise absolutely everybody to learn that tea bags were invented not in Britain, but Milwaukee.
So
the first patent, or patent, if you will, was filed in...
So how would you make the tea without... Like would you, like in the way you make coffee?
City in 1903 by its inventors Roberta Lawson and Mary McLaren. Within 5 years, the idea caught the attention of New York importer Thomas Sullivan, who subsequently had them shipped around the world. The tea bags, not the inventors. Today, tea bags are a common household item in Britain, but Yorkshire tea, which is manufactured 80 miles from my English hometown, owes everything to 2 people 80 miles from this one. Behold, US patent 723287, the tea leaf holder. Is that what it's called?
Guys, isn't it Yorkshire not a thing in England? Isn't there only South Yorkshire, North Yorkshire, West Yorkshire?
And so, if I've learned anything from this 2-part series, it is that both of my homelands have a rich history of influencing each other. In many ways, our special relationship feels more like one of siblings. We might squabble from time to time, but it's only because we can't stand each other. Soon, I'll be looking at recent words that Britain took from America and vice versa. In the meantime...
Don't you dare say apple pie!
If you haven't seen it yet, here are 6 American things that are actually British. So watch that video next.
I'm gonna get so triggered.
Goodbye.
Love you, Lawrence. Love you guys. Hope you're doing well. Would appreciate any comments. I'm just angry right now, and I want to get to the next video about 6. If apple pie was created, I don't know if you guys know this, but like, if anyone asks you, like, what's the most quintessential American food? Apple pie. Well, they'll say maybe hamburger, but like Hamburg, Germany, right? Not really a thing. You can't say hot dogs are an American invention because a hot dog is basically a sausage. But apple pie is American. It was invented in America. I am 50% sure. I would have said 100% now that you had this video. So I'm watching this video right now.
Hello, I'm Lawrence and I.
Hey, Lawrence. Bye, guys. See you next video. Bye. Love y'all.